All right, hello everyone. This is A7X Fan Ben here with God Mason and for the first time, Captain Vendari. This is episode number 23 of the Pirates CSG Podcast, and we've got a lot of random topics on hand for you, as we like to do with these episodes. But first, I'm going to let Vendari introduce himself fully.
Hey guys, I'm Captain Vendari. I played this game since Pirates of the Caribbean was released. Actually, I found a couple packs of it at Walmart. Bought them, opened the packs. Inside was HMS Endeavour and the Barnacle. So those were my two very first ships.
Nice.
And I was honestly in love with the game as soon as I saw those ships. Put them together. I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. So I found some friends, got them into it, played it all through high school, and it was one of my favorite games for a very long time.
Nice.
So that's a brief review of my story.
Yeah, nice. All right.
By Barnacle, did you get the Grand Barnacle and the Endeavor out of the same pack?
No, it was the one-mast Barnacle.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say it couldn't have been Grand Barnacle because those are both.
No way.
Yeah, because those are both 3-card ships, and they always have exactly 6 cards in each pack.
Yeah.
Unless it was some freaky once in a million pack.
That'd be cool. Get 2 rare 5s. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But whatever.
Yeah, so we do have a few little news things. I should have talked about this a month ago on episode 21, but for you, those of you who've seen this Vassal Campaign Game 4 preview video or hype video, there's kind of a little callback to an earlier episode of the podcast in the Barbary Coast set review where God Mason wanted myself and Bill, to make the noise John Ward looks like he's making in his portrait for his card picture, and so then I included a little callback to that in the video. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'll put a link to the video in the description in the posts for this podcast, and it's one of my best YouTube videos yet, so I'm pretty excited about it. But it was fun to kind of tie in the podcast to a video about campaign games, so that was fun. And then another one, there's a new home for my fan site, Pirates with Ben. Now is just pirateswithben.com without the Weebly branding, but it's pretty much starting over from scratch because I haven't been able to transfer the site effectively at all. So I'm going to build it up from the beginning, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I made a post on miniature trading, and links for the most part will now point to the new site, but it's going to be in progress for a while, so don't expect big things from it yet, but I'm going to be posting a daily blog pretty much every single day, I hope. And each day I'm going to try to add more content, and eventually it should surpass the old Weebly site in terms of how informational it is, how exciting it is, new content and stuff like that. So that's exciting, but more of a long-term project for me. And then the other thing, sometimes people request where they can get cheap stuff online, and raintiger.com, tiger in this case spelled with a Y, Tyger, raintiger.com, the user Mind from Miniature Trading, he sells pirate stuff on there, almost only pirate stuff, I think. And you can get some stuff for cheap. A lot of the rares are pretty expensive, but there are some gems to be had. For example, last episode was the Caribbean set review, and we talked about Capitaine Chabal, who's a cargo wrecker, and Jailhouse Dog, a good UT. You can get that crew for twofer on the site for just 25 cents, so it's a pretty good price. There's some other ones, like the Paradox is a solid pirate gold runner for 30 cents. Some Barbary Coast Corsair named crew for 50 cents. The Cumberland Christian Fior were only 50 cents. So in the OE LL Geyseros, one of the best support gunships in the game, only 50 cents. So it's a good site. I've bought from it in the past, so I can vouch for it. It was a really good experience. And Miniature Trading premium members get 10% off, I believe. So that's a nice little offer too. So raintiger.com, kind of an underrated site to buy pirate stuff at. And so, there's actually some South China Seas he still has available too. So that's something to check out if you want to get some stuff, get some deals on things.
I can actually vouch for it too. That's where I got most of the stuff for my Balchuan build. So
nice.
Yeah, Rain Tiger is a really good place to get some pirate stuff. I think I got that stuff for like $30. So
nice.
I don't think I ever ordered from there, but that's just because I ended up buying more packs than anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm now at the point where rather than spending any more money, I would rather just do trading to get what I need. So
Yeah.
I don't think I'm in the market for that, but there is some really good stuff on there. There's also Roberto Santana for 30 cents, who's a pretty important crew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I agree with you there. I've done a lot of trades, and that's how I try to get stuff nowadays. So especially because it's more of a seller's market. The eBay prices have gone for more on buy it nows, and especially for auctions. It's been a bit of a seller's market the past like 2.5 years. So better time for trading than buying in general. So.
And I think it's about time we start to move on to custom units, isn't it?
Yep.
It is.
Okay. So I think it's starting with custom ships organized version, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. And it's Silvaxri's post first?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Which ship of his or crew are we going to do?
I thought we could look at Dredge. It looked like one we haven't done yet, so might as well take a shot at it. The Dredge is maybe a little bit more than halfway down the post for Silvaxri. And the Dredge is a cursed one-master. It has a 4L cannon, 5 cargo, SS movement, and the abilities say the ship cannot load treasures from wild islands, but also you may use an explore action on a Sargasso Sea or Whirlpool. If you do roll a d6, load a gold coin of that value onto this ship. So that's a really interesting one. So you sort gold from terrain, which is kind of funky. And the flavor text explains it along with the name. Once a fishing vessel, its nets caught on the wreck of Davy Jones's fleet. To reward the crew for finding this lost ship, he conscripted them into his fleet. So, makes sense. I'm not a huge fan of one masters having more than 4 cargo, because they didn't really in the game, outside of a galley from Return to Savage Shores, but it's an interesting concept. I think it would be good in terms of staying out of trouble, because you could load gold from outside the game, I guess it must be, from terrain, and therefore maybe avoid conflicts at Wild Islands, and you could also avoid an opponent's fort if you source it from terrain instead of islands. So I think it's kind of a cool concept for the Cursed, actually.
I think it's pretty cool, but it's not specific where you load that treasure from. Is it I mean, this is one of those things that's like, do you load it from outside the game?
That's what I thought.
If so, it's super game breaking, because if you've got Calypso or something, you just drop a whirlpool near your home island.
Good point.
You can just roll over and over again, and if you've got like a hoist that's in between Dredge and your home island, you've basically got a way to pour at least 1 gold into your home island every turn, up to 6.
Oh, goodness.
That's a good point with Calypso.
Yeah, it's...
Or wait, no, if you put one of the +2 gold crew onto the hoist, you're looking at 3 to 8 gold every single turn.
Wow.
For free. So I think Dredge it needs to be a lot more specific. Maybe on a 5 or a 6, you can load 1 random treasure from a wild island.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that seems a little less game breaking.
Yeah. Or maybe
because that exploit, that's pretty exploitive.
Maybe if it was always a 1, but then you still have the gold bonus problem. So.
Yeah, and if you end up stacking the gold bonuses, you still end up at 4 per turn, which is still outrageous. Yeah, I prefer the random chance sort of thing. That's still powerful, but it's not as bad.
Yeah. I think that card could go down to 3 or 4. 5 is a lot for one master, so.
Yeah, I mean, what use does it have for 5 if you're going to be using it for that ability, which you are?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're done with that one, then the unit I would like you guys to have a look at on my post is HMS Thresher.
Yeah, you could give the stats if you want, and then we give to you back after.
All right. HMS Thresher is a 16-point submarine, 2 cargo, SS move, 3 S guns. This ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit. When the ship is given a shoot action, for every cannon roll of 6, the target's controller eliminates an extra mast. For every 1, eliminate a hull piece from this ship.
Huh. Interesting. I think it could be cheaper, maybe. Because it strikes me as I don't know. It doesn't strike me as like a super powerful offensive unit. And people know I don't like that ability because I've had some issues with it. Roll a lot of ones on shoot actions. But with that being said, I think some of the other submarines that are 2 segments are comparable for 10 or 12 points, I believe. So I would say it could come down to maybe 13 or so, personally.
Okay. I'll knock it down to that, and I don't know, one day I might play test it and let you know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably do Captain Helmsman, just let it rip from there, pretty much.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Vendari?
Yeah, I'm just looking at that 2-mast with 1 hit ability and thinking about like the cost of HMS Endeavor at like 21 for a 5-master, just with that 1 ability. So, but the downside is if you roll a 1, you lose a hull piece, and it's a 2-mast submarine. So I'm kind of thinking the cost is a little more fair than Ben's giving it.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about the 2 masses with 1 hit, so maybe 14 or 15 could work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's high risk, high reward, so, but it's fragile.
Yeah, it's very, very high reward. That's 3 masts on a 6.
Yeah, 3 masts on a 6, and if you manage to get 2 6s somehow, you're looking at 6 masts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't see that part of the ability.
That is...
I mean, the plus side, it has the submarine keyword minus, it can damage itself. So I guess those sort of even out. So at about 2/3 the offensive capability of Endeavor, would you say it's probably worth 2/3 the cost of Endeavor? Say 14?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's just not something I would want to use because it's so... I don't know, for me it's more high risk than high reward because I'm probably going to get 1s, and you have to surface to do max damage, and then with submarine surface they have to get smashed pretty quickly, so if you don't start hitting, you're going to be in trouble. So I think a World Hater maybe...
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, like Norrington.
A combo World Hater captain, like Norrington.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the question would be, would you want to do a helmsman or a shipwright? Because a shipwright would let you get away with damaging yourself once or twice.
Yep.
But a helmsman would make it easier for you to have the upper hand in engagements.
Yeah, I'd rather have the helmsman to make sure I got the first hit or first shot.
Or wait, could you do both of those with First Mate Ismail?
Yeah, or you could do the Captain Helmsman combo crew from England, and then a World Hater separately.
Or if you felt like going nuts, you could do the Hermione Gold and Trevor Van Tyne combo and drop an extra gun on it.
Yeah,
oh my goodness! Then you could still have the shipwright.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
and you'd be slower, but you'd have hypothetically the capability to knock down 9 masts in 1 turn with a 2-masted ship.
Yeah.
Why would you be slower? Hermione Gold is a helmsman.
Oh, you're right.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a little crazy, but at the same time, you're still kind of banking on good RNG there.
And that still only comes out to 9 points.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
9 points worth of crew.
Yeah, I should probably.
It's 25 points worth of ship plus crew.
For a 2-master.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a submarine. If somebody's got, a canceller out there, you're toast.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It feels like something's going to do a lot of damage right away, and then your opponent's inevitably going to target it and try to sink it. So.
Yeah, so maybe 14 points would be fair.
High value target and glass cannon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Yep, I'm going to adjust that cost in my little sheet. So I think, were we headed on to your custom set now?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Yeah.
Ours the Epic Seas, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the 4th tab on the spreadsheet.
All right, and did you decide on when to do the Great Apostasy?
Yeah, let's do that one. Sure.
Okay, I'll read it off. Great Apostasy is a 23.6 masted junk with 4 cargo and S move. The guns are 3S, 3S, 3L, 3L, 3S, 3S. Its abilities are Junk, Fire Pot Specialist, Stink Pot Specialist. Enemy ships within S of the ship get -1 to their cannon rolls, which is kind of an ability that I sort of like. So expensive, big, slow, reasonably armed, and it's got... It's a weird one because I bet it's more effective than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but I hope to sooner rather than later.
I'm guessing it can use both of those specialist abilities at the same time?
Yeah, just not with the same
Yeah, one for
cannon.
each cannon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're not technically keywords, but it's, almost the same thing, so whatever. I didn't want to write both of those abilities out, because then the ability text would be ridiculously huge, so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like a slow dreadnought that like takes the hope out of all she encounters. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll read the flavor text in a second. Crushing the hopes and spirits everywhere is the great apostasy. An inky blackness seems to emanate from her hold, where the sounds of cursed hordes and tortured captives mix to create an eerie wail heard across the waters. Doom awaits those who face her in battle.
As well as a lot of stinkiness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stinky death. The great apostasy.
Yes. Yeah, it's just one of those big epic cursed flagships, but it's really slow, so. I think it's...
Yeah, it just... Okay, no, sort of non sequitur. I actually looked up what apostasy was not long ago, so this is like, oh, wow, ran across the word that I learned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for ideas on Wikipedia, and I found more than I expected, so, yeah. I wanted to bring some of them to customs that would be thematically fitting, so.
There are a lot of religious references in here.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the ship or no, Bendari?
My thought is it looks pretty powerful. Just from a quick glance perspective, it's got 4 abilities, which I don't think you see very much on a ship.
I think I was kind of thinking a little bit along the lines of El Corazado from Spanish Main, which is also S-speed and has a great defensive ability. This one does as well, but then get slightly worse firepower, a tiny bit worse, and then but 2 points more. So it's a decent comparison, I guess. But hopefully I'll be able to use it soon.
One thing I really like about this ability, the enemy ships within S of the ship get -1 to their cannon rolls, is she can still be hit.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like that other ability where enemy ships within S cannot hit the ship.
Yeah, I hate that ability.
You don't even get to shoot at it.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah, yeah, they still have a chance. And then, of course, there's plenty of long-range guns in the game, so you could get regular cannons if you just stay out of the S range. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that kind of adds some value to L-range guns, which I think are of limited value a lot of the time. Another good thing about this is because it's not as extreme as El Corazado, I think fights between it and other ships may last for more turns.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it makes sense historically. Yep.
That's one thing I'd like too, is to see longer battles between ships and pirates, because they end way too quickly. They end in like 1 or 2 turns, and it's like, well, that was fun. What else do we do?
Yeah, that's why I love the 2 hits for mass ability, which we're using in Vassal Game 4 again. So, yep.
Right.
Ships sink too quickly too, or too often, I should say. So.
Yeah.
Most of the time they would sink just from cannon fire in real life. So, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback. We can move on to next custom thing here.
Which was this okay, that was Phoebe, or I think it was was it Sylvaxry or Xerax?
Yeah, Xerax. Beans of the
Okay, Xerax. Yeah, which is kind of funny that I confuse them because they've both got, X's in their names and all that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Anyway, we were doing an entire faction from that set?
Yeah, the Cursed faction. It's not nearly as big as from his last set, so that's good.
Got it.
It's got 12 pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, why do I feel like I've seen some of these before?
It might be in organized version, probably.
Possibly.
I might have posted some of them in the regular custom ships thread, the old one. Yeah. Probably.
All right, let's start off with the one at the top of the list from this custom set, Fiends of the Blood Islands. It's called the Grim, and this is a sea monster. It's 20 points. It's one of the 5-segmented squid things. All of its, I guess, tentacles or cannons, whatever you want to call them, are 3S. 0 cargo, SS movement. Keywords are obviously sea monster. Limit, eternal. Once each turn, you may eliminate one segment from the sea monster and give any other sea creature in play an action. So, I mean, I'm seeing something that's it's like Seleucus, but not quite.
Yeah.
You follow?
Yeah, that's a solid comparison. Yeah, makes sense.
I think one major change that needs to be made is that it needs to say you can eliminate one segment instead of giving this sea monster an action.
Yeah, I agree.
Because otherwise you could just, you could knock it out, and then during its repair stint at the home island, because it's allowed that with Eternal, you could just give an extra action every turn in addition to repairing.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. It's too automatic for me. So you take out a segment, you don't even give up the action, and then another sea creature. And it's sea creature, not sea monster. So you could do this with dragons and titans, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I would say for changes, I think he could nix Limit and Eternal. I think Limit's kind of overused, but Eternal makes this kind of overpowered in my opinion. So that's the change I would make. In that case, maybe it could even come down a little bit, like 18 or 19 points, but not by too much.
I think even less than that. Because, I mean, the whole fountain of infinite extra actions thing that we see with Micron and then a unit like this, those are just kind of, I think that's taking the game in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Which is why Micron is banned in so many
groups.
Yeah. And if you took away Limit and Eternal and kept the other ability, I would say 15 points is justifiable, maybe less.
With giving up the action or written as is?
As is.
Okay.
Because then you're going to kind of burn out fast no matter what with this thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 15 points, take away Limit and Eternal, and then as is, it'd be okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Do you think the same, Vendari?
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I'll go on to Mavra's Steed, which is the next one. This is a 4-mast or 4-claw Titan. It's 17 points. First, of course, the cannons are bad, actually. 4S, 5S, 5S, 4S. 2 cargo, SS move, link to Mavra, we'll see soon. And the abilities are Titan, and sea creatures within S of this ship get +1 to their cannon rolls. So this is kind of like a sea creature cheerleader, actually, which is interesting. I would say with those bad cannons, this is totally not viable at like 50 or 60 points, but if you're going, I would say like above 100, and you've got like a sea monster or sea creature squadron, this could be pretty good. You could pair it with either maybe Randanoidea or Brachioura, some of the other good Titans, or just other sea monsters, and pair it up well. But I don't know. As is, it seems kind of bad for 17 points in a smaller game. I think you'd have to use a ton of points to get value out of this.
Well, let's also check out the link. Which is Mavra. Which is a 10-point crew. The ability is once at the beginning of each of your turns, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, any sea creature in your fleet may be given 2 actions this turn. So it's like halfway between Fleet Admiral and...
Micron, yeah.
Well, not Micron, no. Halfway between Fleet Admiral and normal extra action, because it's on a 5 or a 6 as opposed to a 6.
Yeah.
But it only applies to sea creatures. So you've got higher odds of it activating, but it's unit specific.
Yeah. I think the cost is about right. Maybe 9 could work, but...
I'd say 9 because sea creatures as a whole are kind of just not as good as ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're also just a lot more expensive too, typically.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why they're not so good, because most of them can't repair, so they are by default disposable units, but they're just way too expensive to be disposable, almost regardless of game size.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As for Mavra's Steed, I mean, this is already one of the game's most overpriced abilities on one of the game's most overpriced unit types.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a more niche variant of that ability.
Exactly. And it can't even, it basically can't defend itself. So that's a problem too.
Honestly, this thing could be 10 points, and I think you'd still struggle to use it.
Yeah, I agree for most games. Yeah. I think with this combo with Mavra and the Steed, I think you would have to spend, I don't know, I think the game sizes would have to be absolutely gigantic for it to even be remotely feasible. I think even 200 points or more. So it's kind of like a campaign game specialty thing, but even there, it's kind of fragile too, because you'd invest about 27 points or more, and you can hardly defend it, and then it would just get nixed after 4 hits. So pretty rough to use.
Yeah. I think 11 points for Mavra Steed and then 9 points for Mavra. That is still even pushing it. Because I say 11 and 9 because then you can drop on a helmsman, which would be kind of important if you're gonna do that.
Yeah. I think you could play test it at that level. Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, I think you'd probably rather use Serpent's Bane or something? Serpent's Fang?
Oh yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite ships. Yep.
Yeah, so if you're gonna go with the Sea Creature Shepherd sort of strat, there are existing good alternatives.
Yeah, good point. And they even have a crew. Sargasso Nightmare and Hag of Tortuga are boosters as well that you could put on a cheaper curse ship. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you have this sheet that we're looking at open, Vendari?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, would you like to start Wolf's Bane?
Yes, I would. So the Wolf's Bane is a 15-point ship with 4 masts. Its cannons are 3S, 4L, 4L, 3S, with cargo space of 3 and base move of L. And her ability is once per turn, before you give this ship an action, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, this ship may be given the same action twice.
I'm going to say meh.
Yeah, it's a very meh ship.
Yeah.
I mean, this is average or below in every way. It has SAT, which is a good ability, but I would say this ship, based on stats alone, is worth only 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, I mean, you look at HMS Dover. Okay, HMS Dover is underpriced, but I mean, 10 points, I believe, is sort of the standard for WizKids if you do a 4-master with all 3 L guns and L move and 4 cargo, no ability. You look at this, I say this is an 8 or 9 point ship, so with this ability, it should only be 11 or 12 at most.
Yeah. I think about 12 could be the low end. It's got a great ability, but everything else is extremely forgettable. So
yeah, useless, borderline.
Yep.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that assessment.
All right. Cool.
All right. I guess I'll start on Nigram Mortem, I think. I don't want to play the pronunciation game here because I feel like we may start to get kind of rude. This is an 18-point 4-masted ship. Its guns are 3S, 2S, 2S, 3S. 3 cargo, SS move. Abilities are Fear. If this ship wins a boarding party, she may eliminate all of the other ship's crew. This seems straight out of Davy Jones' Curse to me. And it does have semi-competent armament, but I think both of those abilities are overpriced.
Me too.
And I mean, this is probably not too far off from what the ship's worth. What do you say about 16?
That's what I was going to say. Exactly.
Yeah, 16 sounds right.
Me too. I agree.
Yeah, 16, I guess, sounds appropriate. We all agree on that?
Yeah, we do. Nice.
All right.
It's like mind reading or something tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Merchant's Lament for you, Ben?
Yeah, Merchant's Lament is the next one. It's a 15.3 master. Cannons are 5S, 3S, 5S, 4 cargo, SS move, and the ability is Armed Merchant, which says it's a keyword. Once per turn, it's a free action. One of the ship's cannons may shoot at one enemy target within range. The shot may not have its range or rank increased. So you get like a free shot without a captain. That said, though, this thing is a little uninspiring as well. Maybe a little more unique than the Wolf's Bane, but not really much better. I would say this is probably a cursed Gold Runner with a helmsman and maybe nothing else. But with that, I would say maybe 11 points makes more sense to me. So.
I was going to say something in that neighborhood too. I was going to say around 10 because there are so many good Gold Runner options out there from other sets. I mean, if you go to Crimson Coast, I think you could probably count off 10 from memory to do this better.
Yeah.
The Armed Merchant thing, I get what he's going for. Yeah. I don't think it's all that valuable.
I know. I feel like that one might be overpriced here.
I think it's pretty desperately overpriced. I want to say that that's like a 1 point ability.
Yeah,
I think it's 2 or 3 just because Cannoneer is like a little bit worse and you need a captain realistically to use it, and that's 2 points. So I think it's more than
that's fair.
Get a free shot.
2 points.
Yeah. Still depends on the cannons though. Here you've got a 3S in the middle, but the others are bad. So
yeah. So this is like one kind of middling defensive shot. 10 or 11 points, I'd say, is the most you could possibly spend on this. 11 is like not so sure.
Okay.
Because I know you can think of things you'd rather spend 11 points on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Not for the curse, though.
That's
true. It doesn't matter about the curse, because why would you play the curse if you want to spend 11 points?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's another good point. The cursed usually do tend to be expensive.
Yeah.
And for no real good reason most of the time.
Maybe Hangman's Joke. That's 11. So that's
well, Hangman's Joke is at least kind of, a neat ship to use.
Yeah, she's exciting. Yeah.
She's got a fog jumper ability, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the Cursed seemed like they were WizKids' repository for all their crazy ideas that most of the time didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all over the place and for the most part aren't very good. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
Vendari's up.
Yeah, Vendari, Balthazar.
Yeah, so we have Balthazar as an 11-point captain. And looks like he's got the capture ability.
Yeah, possession.
Okay.
Yeah, possession. So if an enemy ship is within S of this ship, you can use the ship's action for the turn to try to possess the target crew on that ship. Roll a d6. On a result of 6, the target is immediately assigned to the ship. Its nationality changes to match the nationality of the ship. So he's basically Davy Jones with a captain.
Or like Papa Doc captain?
Yeah,
Papa Doc captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's other ones, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking the Pirates of the Caribbean, Davy Jones has that ability.
Oh yeah, he has the Wraith, that other ability.
Yeah, like it's the one where they roll after they're eliminated, right?
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be thinking of Edward Lowe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the other curse one. Yeah, they have a couple. I think this ability is 5 points max. So I understand he's going with what WizKids costed it at, but that makes the crew pretty much unusable. So I think I think 8 is a better starting point.
I agree. I like this. I mean, I like the idea of the ability, but it's not actually that effective considering what you pay for it. So at 8, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it makes sense to combine it with another ability too, because the other possession crew just have it on their own. Probably to keep the cost down, so they weren't like 11 or like 10 or 11 points.
Right.
But I think in this case it's good because you save a cargo. A lot of times you'll want a captain on a possession ship. It's going to be snooping around enemies anyway, so it's good to have a captain aboard. So, but at 11 it just feels unusable, just like even more unusable than the other possession crew. So you're just adding to the cost.
All right. And all right, I guess the next unit for us to talk about is Tyrion the Mad Scorpion King. There are a lot of references to that show Ruby by Rooster Teeth in here, which he was glad that I pointed out. Tyrion is 6 points, loyal, cursed, hostile pirate. may eliminate all of the other ship's crew when winning a boarding party. I think this is an overpriced ability, especially with Hostile Pirate, which, I mean, I don't really see much point to this crew over the cursed existing options, especially with Hostile Pirate. I want to say 5 points, maybe 4.
Yeah, I like the Massacre ability at 5 points. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, if you like it at 5 points, then Hostile Pirate being worth -1 should maybe be worth 4.
I don't think so, because Wolf has talked extensively about Hostile not really mattering that much, and even though the Pirates are the best faction, it's just kind of, it's pretty meh, so you don't really, if the Curse want help, they can go to the French and Spanish too, so unless the hostilities to, like, all the other factions, then unless it's to all of them, it doesn't really matter much, so more of a thematic thing than something that should affect the cost, basically.
I'm sure there's a way to make a geopolitical joke out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who is going to do which Queen Salem?
Yeah, I'm on that one.
All right.
Yeah, which Queen Salem is 13 points, and the ability is once at the beginning of each of your turns, roll a d6. On a result of 6, any ship in your fleet may be given 2 actions that turn. All sea monsters in your fleet gain the fear keyword. Okay, so this is one of the ones I had a huge issue with, because there's no cap on it. So this gets into the same problem that navigators and cargo masters have, where the abilities don't scale at all in terms of the game size. So you've got the Admiral's action ability for 6, and then all sea monsters in your fleet gain the fear keyword for 7, which is not too bad in a game at like 100 points or lower. And you've got to use a lot of sea monsters to make it worth it, because if fear is worth 2 in general, you'd have to use at least 3 sea monsters or 4 to get value out of it, I guess. But I just don't like how this doesn't scale in cost. So if you use like a 500 point game or a campaign game, it becomes broken pretty much automatically, just like Cargo Masters. So, and I'm pretty sure I've already talked to him about this in the thread. I think there should be a cap on it, like pick 3 during setup, or 5 even, and just have the cost based on that. So then if fear is worth 2, and there's a cap of 3, maybe it could be 12 points with 6 for fear, or even cheaper, just to, just in case the crew's eliminated, and then all the fear goes away immediately, so you can even do it cheaper. I just think there should really be a limit on it. Not the keyword, of course, but...
I'm personally a fan of sea monsters, and I think this actually adds some value to them at the cost with WizKids made them. I think it takes units that are of questionable to no value and makes them possibly worth using, even though the scaling is kind of weird. There's also the fact that this crew, if you don't protect it adequately, you lose it and you're losing a disproportionately large amount of value in a large game. I mean, yeah, this is clearly one that's supposed to be kept away from the front line. It's a fleet admiral, and it has an ability that's meant to apply to a ton of ships. But as we know, I mean, if somebody deploys a Sea Dragon with an extra action, ideally with one of the cargo wrecking or crew killing abilities, it doesn't matter where you are, because you can lose your crew to a heck of a lot of weird things in this game. So, I mean, I think for good reason, okay, my excuse for me saying that this crew probably doesn't need to be changed, in my point of view, is that it adds value to terrible units, and it is such a high value target that it's going to be difficult to use it to its potential no matter what.
Okay, yep. Any thoughts, Mandari, or no?
The only thought I had was, what if it acted like one of the cheerleader ships and gave the fear keyword to sea monsters within, say, L, or even S plus S of the ship.
Yeah, I'd be alright with that.
That's not bad.
That's a good way to limit it.
The cost would have to come down.
Yeah, that's a good way to limit things. Maybe make it like 10 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, or you could completely. You could restructure it so it's just kind of a proximity bonus for sea creatures, like a bunch of proximity bonuses. Yeah, I like that. It's probably a lot more reasonable.
Nice, love it.
All right.
Last one.
That would be you, Vendari.
Yes, I'll take it. So this is called Morris Castellum. It's a 4-mast ship for 7 points. Each time is this a ship or is this a sea creature? I don't know. There's no stats for cargo or movement here. But it says each time a non-cursed ship comes within L of this. Oh, it's a fort. Okay.
Okay.
Roll a d6 on a 4 through 6. Eliminate the crew with the lowest cost on that ship, which makes the 7 points a little bit more understandable as the gold cost for the fort.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think it'd be best in, big games, as he and I like to play a lot.
Still really expensive, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of gold. You got to commit to that.
Yeah, it'd be good to, the Cursed have the most, L mover crew in the game where you can roll a 5 or 6 and move enemy ships. And then they've got D.B. Jones, of course, with the 6, all-powerful 6 roll. So they could use some of their existing abilities to combo with this and yank them into the range. But I don't know. It's not even that great, though. I think you could eliminate maybe a random crew, because it's defaults to the lowest, which is probably not going to affect things very much, even in a big game.
And at the same time, how do you really pick a random crew?
Just shuffle it or whatever, and then a random blind drawing. There's ways to do it.
Roll a die.
Yeah, assign numbers, roll dice. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I guess it can be done. It's way too expensive for me to use. I think even in a big game, I'd say no.
Yeah. All right. I think we're ready for the next part then. Nice.
All right.
So one of the suggestions from the rules survey talked about obscure or random rules interactions, which is something I always enjoy. This is where it gets really dense with the pirate code and rules questions. So this is kind of a fun topic, kind of almost like a brain teaser or like a challenge almost. And a lot of times I'm wrong, despite my experience in the rules thread. I sometimes guess in my head, and then Wolf answers, of course. So Derek's asked if Metal Hull is on the same ship as Monkey's Paw. So Metal Hull, basically, you have to roll a 6 to hit the ship, and then if it's hit, you remove Metal Hull from the game. And then Monkey's Paw means that if a ship is given a shoot action, one of the cannons automatically hits the target. So if Metal Hull and Monkey's Paw are on the same ship, basically Metal Hull gets removed by the hit, which Monkey's Paw gives you automatically, and then the hull gets removed as a result. So I was a little, I don't know, I thought it was kind of up for debate, just because Monkey's Paw doesn't say a 6, and Metal Hull specifically says ships must roll a 6 to hit her. So, and Monkey's Paw is just an automatic hit, doesn't specify a number, and you don't have to roll. So I was a little, I don't know, I guessed wrong, because I thought the wording of Metal Hull would at least matter somewhat. So I kind of disagree with this pirate code ruling. I don't know if either of you guys do, but kind of
I think Wolf might be able to clarify it by equating Monkey's Paw to a 6 roll. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it just doesn't say roll, and there's no 6 involved, so it's just kind of...
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little funky.
Yeah, it's a weird one where I think I get where Wolf is coming from and why it's said that way. I think it's a small gap between the decision and the text that can be cleared up pretty easily.
Yeah, and then it made it even more complicated because the same.
Which I've been reading that while you've been talking, trying to understand this next part.
Yeah, so the same ship with those 2 UTs also has Relics and Cross of Coronado, which are both defensive. So, and Derek's asked, would either of them apply or affect the previous situation? And Wolf says those both apply instead of eliminating a mast, but don't negate the hit. So Metal Hull is removed, but the ship avoids mast elimination. So, I don't know. I think this is one of the most complicated UT situations I've seen. Not that I was in the game, but that I've heard of. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it also proves, once again, that the game is a lot more complicated than people give it credit for, because it came out as like a quote-unquote like beer and pretzels game, but it can become really complex, more than most people realize. So.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, that sounds like a really good evening, just beer, pretzels, and pirates.
Just another thought on that metal hull bit is that if the ship gets +1 to their cannon rolls, a 5 will also be considered a 6 to satisfy the metal hull.
Yep.
So it's just another thing to think about when considering the monkey's paw issue.
Yep. All right. We could go to the next part. One of the other suggestions from the survey was, would you guys consider doing a quick historical overview of some notable ships or crew? And this was actually something people had an issue with WizKids for a long time. People wanted more direct historical counterparts in the game. There's a lot of kind of like fictionalized counterparts. But one thing they did do was the Fire and Steel historical pack, which we will go over in full detail in the set review for that set. But in the historical pack, there were 4 historically accurate pirate ships, and each of them has a linked crew. So, for example, the first one is the Royal Rover with Bartholomew Roberts. You've got the Queen Anne's Revenge with Blackbeard, the Amity with Thomas Tew, and then the Minerva with Christopher Moody. So, I don't know how much it's like the historical integration, or if you have that pack or anything.
I wish I did. I liked the fact that it existed, but I don't like the fact that it's so stinking rare.
Yeah. It used to be more common, but it totally disappeared from eBay pretty much. I got mine for $10, but that was a while ago when you could actually find it. Now you can't really. So.
By a while ago, you mean probably 5 years?
Maybe not quite, but at least 3. Yeah.
I think I saw a full set of those go for over $100 not long ago.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's amazing. I'll have to try to look that up.
I want to say it was like $140. I wonder if it's still like in my watch history.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think Old Man in Germany may have extras. He used to. I don't know if he still does.
Old Man has a lot of extra stuff, but at the same time, it's sometimes hard to get into contact with him.
Yeah, of course. And then the ship.
Yeah. There was one point where I was trying to buy, because he doesn't really do any trading. I was trying to buy.
He doesn't need to trade.
No,
he's got everything.
Yeah, he's got everything and then some.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was trying to buy some stuff, but he just dropped out of contact. It's not always easy to stay in contact with him. But poking more at historical ships, there's one from, I think it's Davy Jones' Curse, called the Whydah. It's spelled WHYDAH. I want to say it's a Kurth ship, supposed to be all ghostly and all that.
Yep, I've got one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a very good ship. But that, too, is a ship with a historical counterpart called the Whydah as well, which was a British ship at one point. But at some point, it was captured by Black Sam Bellamy, who is a well-known captain in the Golden Age of Piracy. I believe the ship was sunk in 1717, but rediscovered in 1984.
Yep. Yeah, I was reading some articles about that this year and last year. Pretty cool story.
Yeah. I should read up on it at some point.
Yeah. And if anybody's looking for more historical ships, WizKids didn't make a ton of direct counterparts, but that's exactly what I'm doing with my main custom set, which is called Pirates of the Age of Sail. It's got, I think over 400 game pieces already, and I'm adding 1 per day in the custom ships thread. So if you want more historically related stuff, my spreadsheet is linked in like most of my posts in the custom ships thread, and that's where Epic Seas is as well. But my main custom set is completely historical, so if you like that side of things, you can take a look at that. And I'm just going to keep developing it as long as I can. So, yeah. And then, there's some other ones that are famous, like the Constitution, of course, from Revolution. But other than that, there's mostly it's kind of like debatable whether or not they were fictionalized versions or direct counterparts, stuff like that. So I know William Eaton was a real Marine, so that's cool. And Decatur, of course. You know.
And John Paul Jones, who I actually went as for Halloween one year, but I was a strange child going as American historical figures.
I have not yet begun to fight.
Yeah. Wait, was that John Paul Jones?
What?
Wait, no, okay, I was
pretty
thinking
sure it was.
Yeah, that was John Paul Jones. I was thinking of Paul Revere for a second.
Oh.
The British are coming. The British are coming.
Yeah, no, it wasn't him that I went as. But anyway, I think the next thing up was rule variants to get ships on the table.
Yeah, that was another suggestion from the survey. Kind of vague. I don't really know what to say. There is a game ideas thread stickied on miniature trading that has a ton of rules variants, pretty much every single one I've ever found, pretty much. So it's a compilation of a lot of stuff. There's scenarios and variant rule sets. So I would just check that out. Definitely. And yeah, that's kind of a concept in general that I like. I like to change up my games and change it up and use different scenarios, different ideas. And Vassal Campaign Game 4 is using a modified version of the Economy Edition rules by Cannon Fury. So we're changing it up in that game too. So definitely a recommendation to stay interested in playing. Yep. Yeah, any other thoughts on that or no? It's kind of big.
I'm actually looking at Cadet Captain Mike's random pirate setup tables.
Nice.
I played with those once before in high school and thought it was pretty fun. Might have to do that again.
Yeah, I've done
That's
that.
a way to get ships onto the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cut out the point costs, and a lot of unusable ships suddenly become useful, like all those cheerleaders, like Le Solitaire.
Nice. Yeah, I've done that. I've done the setup tables maybe 3 or 4 times. And yeah, it's definitely a fun one. I like that too. Yeah, Captain Mike's fan site is a wealth of great information. So especially for newbies,
Got some
it's really
great battle reports too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what inspired my own website.
Same with me. Yeah, same with my own battle reports. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. I haven't updated my site in a long time.
Yeah, I'm totally keeping mine up, but. All right. Yeah, and then another one, recent game recaps. It's something, kind of a series we can do on these numbered episodes. So I haven't played a lot lately. CG4 is kind of in limbo. Same with the Caribbean game. If anybody's wondering, we're kind of on hold for now, just kind of waiting for turns. But recently I played a 40-point game where I was able to test out my fleet where the Jade Rebellion has Calypso on the Tiger's Paw, because that's a turtle ship for 6 points that allows pirate crew aboard. So I used that fleet, and the gold score was tied, but I won on the tiebreakers of mass eliminated and points in play. So it did pretty well, and I faced a fleet with the Banshee's Cry and the High Ping in it. And yeah, so
nice.
It did pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that, and so I was pretty excited. And then the battle report is in the thread, of course. So yeah, that's the only recent game though from last 2 episodes.
That's at least good to hear that a gimmick we sort of, I think, came up with on the podcast is at least being used in the real world and with some success.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. I personally haven't played any games in months. I just finished up school. As I start to settle into what my work schedule is going to look like over the summer, I might be able to get the playgroup back together so we can start having some games again. Nice. But in the meantime, I mean, that'll be sort of down the road. Yep. Have you played any recently, Vendari?
No, I haven't. I've had time this weekend. I've been trying to find a game, but I haven't found anyone to bite.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm usually busier on weekends than weekdays, which is kind of weird, but whatever.
Yeah. All right, speaking of games, I'm going to launch into the video game segment once again. This week's game that I'm going to talk about is one called Puzzle Pirates, which I think still exists. I'm going to look it up while I talk about the game. But Puzzle Pirates was a pirate-themed MMO that was a sort of, well, it's a pirate MMO that's almost entirely played through puzzles of varying kinds. It was a lot of fun. It looks like it's still running. it came out in 2003, and I guess that makes it about 15 years old. Almost everything doable in the Age of Sail. You can do bailing. You can do bilge pumping. You can actually steer the ship, and then there's boarding action, all that. It's all done through puzzles, which doesn't sound all that interesting, but it proves to actually be pretty addictive, especially as you start to get better at stuff and you start to get good rewards. The character that I played as, and I played this game when I was when I was a kid or in my early teenage years. My character's name was Bicep, and Bicep was a boisterous fellow, because I was, for some reason, really heavy on role playing a pirate in this. So anytime we were out on a voyage and we ended up getting into a fight and boarding started, in the pre-fight chat, I would just start going bananas, kill, and
Murder hobo.
Yeah, well, kind of, because Bicep did have quite the black beard, and kind of this weird green and white marine uniform. Yeah, it was generally just kind of a weird fellow, but I thought it was really quite a fun game, and it's still up there. It's still out there, still running, and for the most part, it's free. You can spend money on it, but almost anything you can get by just playing the game and using your doubloons or what have you. I would recommend at least trying it out for a couple of hours for people who've got a lot of time on their hands. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does, but it is pretty easy to find people to play with, and I should check to see if old Bicep is still around. They haven't. To see if the muscle hasn't atrophied.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting it out. Looks good.
I'll have to log in one of these days, or at least try to.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say about Puzzle Pirates at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, I'm on the website for a moment here.
Yeah, it looks childish, but it really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a child is fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay. I think the last thing for us to do is questions of the day.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps up the content. So, mine is what is your favorite feature or topic of the podcast? So there was a poll about this on Miniature Trading a while ago, but we've delved into a lot of other things recently. So it could be set reviews. Obviously, that's a big feature of every other episode. The news, the historical content, the custom reviews, some of the guest episodes, of course, and just some of the random topics, like covering the suggestions, of course, is something I want to focus on, obviously, from this episode. We did a bunch of that. So what's your favorite feature of the podcast we've done so far?
Mm-hmm. And one that I have to add is, what do the listeners want to hear from us long term after we run out of official sets to do? Because we did the Caribbean last episode, which means there are really only there are only 4 official sets left. Rise of the Fiends, Fire and Steel, Savage Shores, and Return to Savage Shores, which wasn't released, but we do have the stats so we can do the set review. So we've only got 4 of those left, and if we do them at once a month, we're going to end up running out of those in May, June, July. We'll be done in August.
Yeah.
So,
cool. I
mean, the question from there is, where do we go from there? If anybody has any ideas or suggestions, if they want us to restart and re-examine the first few before we'd figured out the format, or whatever from there, then let us know what direction you want us to take this in.
Good question, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to say from anybody, or no?
Is there anything at all from you, Vendari?
No, I think that wraps everything up.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool. All right, yeah, so this was episode 23, and we'll be back for 24 in a couple of weeks. So thank you for listening, and we're happy to have Vendari as a guest. So
Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right, bye for now, everybody.